Well, it's a very good morning from me, and of course, it's a very good morning from him, as they say. Hello, and welcome to my mortgage live stream. Special treat again for you this week. We got a good friend of mine coming on the call very shortly. He's waiting in the room now. His name's Ravi, and he's all about business protection. And we're going to find out more and more about how he does it, give you some tips and techniques, and all those good things to help you as a mortgage broker, mortgage advisor, migrate into the business protection side of things, or at least get more interested in that area as well. So, without any further ado, let's bring Ravi straight into the call. So, let's pop you in. Ravi, hello and good morning to you. How are you?
Good afternoon. Just gone past good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very fine. It's St. Patrick's Day, so I think people can get away with morning or afternoon when it comes to
Exactly.
it.
Exactly.
I'm very well. I'm very well. So today we have Rafi. Rather than me introduce you, Rafi, tell us a bit more about yourself and how you got into the prospect of business protection. So tell us a bit more.
Yes.
Come on.
So my name is Rafi Sandler. I've been in the industry now for just coming up to 5 years. Literally, I think tomorrow will be 5 years. Entered the industry completely by accident. I moved back to the UK March 2020, which is not a great time to move countries, if I'm honest. Uh, went
That's
into went into lockdown a couple of days later. Had nowhere to live. Was planning on doing all that when we arrived, and everything was shut down. And my father is an IFA.
okay.
At the time, was an IFA in a company. He's now out on his own, doing his own thing. And he said, Rafi, why don't you give this a shot? You've got no job. You've not sure what to do with yourself. Nothing else is really going on. And I was looking at him like, Dad, me and finance are just two things that don't go so well together. And he said, no, I really think this is for you, and this is the right thing for you to consider. And thankfully, the company he was at took a punt on me,
Mhm, mhm.
and I'm really appreciative to them for that. And it's just been a bit of a roller coaster ever since. Um, Started my own business in September 2023 with a business partner of mine called Elliot Landsman, and here we are today, I guess. We do focus on lots of different areas, but my favorite area, and the one I think that we can have a conversation about today, is
Mm.
business protection and how to position that. Um, so that's in a nutshell. That's where I'm at today.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
just
I
to,
love
I'll say a little bit more as well. I've got two kids, married, two kids. Life's good. Can't complain, Paul. Can't complain.
Can't complain at all, Rafi. That's brilliant. I love it. I love the fact that you came over in March 2020. Of course, that was like 5 years ago, wasn't it? Literally, it was this week, I think, that we went into lockdown.
Yeah.
Seems such a long, long time ago, and so much has changed in the mortgage world. So, lovely little synopsis. Thank you. Your business now is doing really well. Well done. And
Thank you.
you're focusing. So, what is actually your niche offering then to your clients?
On the protection side of the business,
Mm.
there's I guess two niche offerings. The one that people potentially see more of is the business protection niche. But I generally I take protection as a whole quite seriously.
Mm.
Um, it's affected our family. When I say our family, my father's father. There's a story there. I had an uncle that passed away quite young, so I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly when it comes to protection, and it's meant that I'm actually quite very passionate about it, generally speaking, and it means that we've been able to also niche ourselves as specialists in the protection space, business protection specialists as well. We get cover for people when other people have given up.
Right.
Um, Built some really good relationships with underwriters in the various providers, and yeah, I just think we've made it very clear that we understand what clients need and how best to support them, be it in the business space or even in the personal space as well.
No, I think that's a great description, then, isn't it? Okay, well, let's dive then into the business protection side because a lot of the people listening today are interested in that element. So, when you're talking to a business, then how do you position yourself so that the business owner or owners become interested in protection?
Yeah, so it's been a bit of a journey in trying to understand how to do that. I guess the main thing that I look at when it comes to protection, and then I'll answer that the business side in a second, is we're dealing with human beings, and human beings, generally speaking, don't necessarily always know the risks that they have in their day-to-day life. And I make it my job to ensure that people understand A, that there are risks, and B, that actually for a relatively low cost or in quite a simple way, this is something that we can mitigate against, and we can support you in doing that in the best way possible. I've actually found positioning business protection opens up a lot more conversations about, personal protection than the other way around. So people generally, I think human psychology is such that we don't like to talk about our own, fallibility, the fact that we aren't going to live forever, or we could potentially get sick, or something may happen to me. When I speak to couples, there's always one spouse or partner who is more concerned about the other partner dropping dead. But generally speaking, it's not something we like to talk about. But you start talking about businesses, and people really engage with that, because I guess they've put their heart and soul into building a business, and there is genuine worry, genuine concern. And the more that the business is successful, the bigger the questions that you may ask yourself, or even if you haven't asked them, when I'm asking them, it's like, yeah, that's actually quite worrying. I haven't really thought about that. And that does then segue into how we can best protect the business, but often it segues into a whole conversation of, well, how can we protect you too? So that's
Yeah.
sort of where I find things start to go.
That's pretty insightful. That because a lot of people on the call today approach couples and people about protection, but when you're saying then that the business person is much more willing to talk about their business, and then it opens up their personal needs, I think that's very insightful. That Rafi, indeed. Tell me about the risks that you highlight with businesses when it comes to protection.
So there's different types of businesses. My biggest client to date is a very large company where both directors have a 50-50 stake in the business, and the business is worth 40 million pounds, for example, right? So the conversation that we had was, what happens if one of you, what happens if something happens to one of you? And it very, very quickly was just, I mean, the job did it itself. There wasn't much that needed to be done. So when you've got huge risks and you're looking at a potential payout of 20 million pounds to, the shareholder and their associated individuals, it's a much easier conversation, perhaps. As well, those are companies that generally are much more liquid and are in a position to look at their options in multiple different ways. So I found that the bigger companies, it's a much easier conversation. SMEs, it's a very different conversation, but they also require different things. So, shareholder protection is a great thing to have, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the first port of call for a small business. You've got maybe one director, there might be a couple of shareholders, but again, the value of the business is quite low. So in those situations, we often look at how we position ourselves in terms of, well, let's just look at the day-to-day running of your business. If something was to happen to you, you're the director, you're the owner of the business, what would happen? And it's not just what would happen to your staff, what would happen to you? Would your company fold? Would it fall apart? Well, how are you going to manage that? How can we offset that? And it's always, for me, I very rarely look at budget to start with. I always say to them, let's discuss the options. Let's discuss where the issues may be. Let's find out how we best can support you. And then it's like the numbers kind of speak for themselves. And when people start to see how that works, it's a very different conversation. And then I often look at the human side, which is, I say, what's your biggest concern if something was to go wrong? And often the answer is, I never knew that there was really an option for me if something was to go wrong. Well, funny you mention that. We can do X, Y, and Z. And if we set it up correctly, it can go tax-free. And you start to then build this picture for them of the fact that, number one, we can help you. Two, that we can support you in a relatively simple and efficient way. It's not going to break the bank. And it might actually save you some money tax-wise as well. So once you start to build it from that perspective, it's a very different conversation. But one of the key areas I also mention to my clients is, of course, I'm a protection advisor, but I'm actually here to support you in the running of your business. So you can't really do shareholder protection without, the right agreements in place, for example. And the number of clients where they'll go, oh yeah, we've got all the agreements in place, and I go, okay, can I see them? And I'm able to support them with that too. And I have people that I work with who I know can come in, can put together a shareholder agreement, can ensure the cross option agreement is correct. And suddenly you're adding a whole layer of professionalism and
Mm.
security to a business. You've given value to the client in ways that they possibly didn't even necessarily know that they needed. And you're ensuring that they are correctly covered. So that's sort of the way I kind of go with that.
No, I think that's a great description, particularly with the different types of protection and shareholders. Great, but of course, key person man insurance is one of the priorities. And interesting that. So let's just say then that you've a business owner has approached you for any reason. How do you position yourself? What's your value proposition when you first meet a business owner to get them interested in talking about protection?
So it's interesting. I thrive from interacting with people almost in a cold call setup.
Hmm.
That's normally for me where I'm at my best. And when I say a cold call setup, what I mean is, I'm sitting at a business event and I meet a guy and he goes, yeah, and I own a business. I'm like, great. And we have a bit of a chat. What do you do? And I go, I do business protection. And they go, what? I say, yeah, I do business protection. And no one actually knows what that is,
Right.
um, which is in and of itself quite fascinating. Um, they think it might be public indemnity. They think it might be, I've had people ask if I do fleet insurance for cars, etc. And I go, and then I start to explain to them. I say to them, look, do you know that there are certain risks associated with your business? And he goes, I mean, yes, but what? And we start to break it down. Again, I haven't once actually even had a conversation about how I can help them. All I've done is I'm having a conversation with someone and sharing
Mm.
with them what I do. But when I share with them what I do, it highlights to them that there's certain things that they should be considering. There's certain value that I can bring. And because I've already framed it in a way that they've already accepted that there's these potential issues, it's a really simple discussion to, all right, well, let's book in some time, have a chat. What's the worst that can happen? And 9 times out of 10, those deals close because I've built this human interaction with my clients
Mm.
and we've supported them through that and really helped them in the various areas that need to be helped.
That's great. So it goes against the grain. The value proposition. I protect businesses. I deal in business protection, and people say, well, what's that all about then? And then you
Yeah,
open them up and get them
yeah.
talking. I guess it's great. So where do you get most of your business from then, Rafi? Where's your prospecting?
So there's two main areas. The main area for me has always been networking. I'm a big personality. I love people. I
You
love
do.
being around people.
You do.
It gets me. It drives me. So I just go to a lot of networking events, and I talk to people. But I've always also got my ear, listening. And because I guess I'm weird, I like talking to people. So I literally just will start talking to people about various things, and that is my main area. The other area has been, and it's picking up more and more now, is LinkedIn.
Okay.
It's an incredible resource, and I have found it to be an amazing opportunity on two fronts. One, it's helped me on a personal level begin to understand what I do.
Mm.
It's very easy to communicate what you do when you've got 5 minutes with someone, but when you've got maybe 3 seconds on a LinkedIn post, it's really difficult. And I've had to really think to myself, well, what is it that I want to communicate to the world? If the world asks me, what do I do? But also being able to communicate what the issues potentially could be in a way that's not going to make people feel like you're pushing them. Because the one thing that I find in this industry generally is that people go in with this idea that mortgage brokers, financial advisors, protection advisors, we're just out there to scam them, which is ridiculous, but that's what they believe. So it's how do I position myself to people on LinkedIn in the public sphere
Mm.
whilst maintaining a certain element of this is how I can help you. You can trust me. So that LinkedIn has become quite a big resource, and I've got, yeah, I would say 3 or 4 of my biggest clients so far have come from LinkedIn in the last couple of months.
Yeah, you have a
Um,
really good profile on LinkedIn. I must
yeah,
admit.
yeah.
Congratulations to you on that one.
Thank you,
Um,
thank you.
So take an example of so quite a people listening to the call will be mortgage brokers, mortgage advisors, development finance specialists mortgage brokers who've moved away from the vanilla side of things because that's all being taken by AI and banks and things.
Mm.
And they're doing a lot of business finance, bridging, seconds, development finance, working with SMEs mostly. And a lot of them don't tend to get involved in the protection side. What would your recommendation be for them to introduce? How would you recommend they introduce business protection as part of their sales process?
This is a question we had to ask ourselves, to be honest, and the question that we had to ask was, how do we, generally speaking, when you've got a mortgage specialist, which is what my business partner is, and a protection specialist, how do you bridge that gap? So on the personal side, what we've created is we explain to our clients that there is a process you need to go on, and that process is not just to buy your home or to buy your investment property. It's to buy your home or investment property and to ensure that that becomes something that you are able to maintain.
Yeah,
And therefore, part of the process is you're going to meet with a protection specialist, and he's going to support you on that side. And we've built this kind of holistic approach to supporting our clients on both the mortgage and protection side. If you need to position yourself business protection wise in things like, I don't know, if you're focusing on specialist finance, development finance, buy to let, portfolio landlord, bridging, or anything of the like, it's the same idea, which is, I'm your broker, I'm here to support you. You've got a buy to let portfolio of 10 properties and you're in partnership with X. What happens if X dies or gets sick? You've got a property management company and you've got 30, 40 properties you have to manage. What happens if, your main manager, I don't know, something happens to him? It's the same sort of questions, but they have to be addressed, in a non-threatening way, which is, I'm here to make sure that your investment or what you're doing or what you're trying to achieve is safe. And it would not be right for me as your advisor to not let you know and understand that there are things out there to help you with that.
no, that's
Um,
right. Mm.
and I do think people respond well to that. I think if they feel like they're being sold to,
Oh yeah,
then it doesn't. But generally speaking, protection, we could open up a whole can of worms here, so we have to be careful. But I find that the industry has positioned itself in quite a negative way, generally speaking. And I think that we have to move away from this idea that it's a quick way to make a little bit of extra cash, or no one ever really wants protection, but if you position it well, people will listen. And move more into the world of, no, if we want to do right by our clients and
yeah.
we understand and appreciate that there are things out there that could help them and their businesses, we have a duty of responsibility to do so. I think that's the idea behind consumer duty, although I don't think it actually helps that much. But the idea behind it is that you're in the finance world, you understand finance, you understand your area specifically really well, but to not let people understand that there's elements within this that could support them in other ways, and not necessarily that I have all the answers, but someone else might, I believe it's a no-brainer, and you will find that people will respond well to it.
That's great. Yeah, consumer duty at the end of the day is about doing the right thing for clients.
Yeah,
Actually, I don't believe personally it's any more than that. It's the
yeah,
right outcomes and whatever you want to call it. And you
exactly,
do.
exactly.
You put clients at the forefront. Do you ever get any, particularly from the referrals to the mortgage side, do you ever get any pushback from business owners to a business protection conversation?
Yes, we do get pushback. The
Mm.
main one is this is not in our budget right now, or we've thought about it. We don't really need it. And I always say to people, and it doesn't hurt to have a conversation.
Mm.
So if you give me 15 minutes of your time, I will come with my best self and I will share with you how it is that I feel I can make a difference to your company, to your business, to the things that you're trying to achieve. Um, the one thing that has really made a big difference in my proposition is that I am a business owner myself. So what that means is that I know where you're at. I understand your day-to-day concerns and issues. Cash flow is just as much of a problem for me as it might be for you. I have staff. I have to make sure my staff get paid. That changed a lot of how I was able to interact with my clients, because I'm living this with you, and I made sure that I've got the protection in place. And I didn't just do it because I'm an advisor. I did it because it makes rational sense to me. And I do believe that that is another big thing. you'll find that a lot of mortgage brokers and a lot of people in the business, when it comes to protection, if you ask them, they don't have the right cover in place themselves. And I've always been of the opinion that if you don't believe in the product enough and you don't necessarily think it's important enough to the point that you yourself don't have it, you're never going to sell it, or you're not sell it well. That's for sure. Um, so I do believe that if you want to be successful in this industry, you have to believe in it to the point that you will put your money where your mouth is and feel the pain points that your clients may feel.
Oh, lovely last phrase there. Put yourself in the customer's shoes. Feel the pain points that the customers feel. And it's all well and good feeling the pain point for a young couple buying their first house, but it's the pain point of a business owner
Yeah, exactly,
understanding the business. That's the key.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
interesting that one. Um, so, what kind of steps would you recommend then? Somebody who is in the development finance side, they're handling business owners, albeit them SMEs, smaller businesses. They've not really approached business protection before, and they're thinking about it. Give them a bit of a roadmap that you might recommend there, Rafi.
So I'll give you the roadmap that I went on,
Nice.
because that's what I had to do. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know much about business protection when I started out. I like I said, I sort of fell into the industry, and I was trained in by my dad, and he's got his way of doing things, and he taught me what he knows. And I thought to myself, I want to do something a bit different. I want to talk to the sorts of clients that I think I will enjoy talking to. I love business. I love people, and then I've discovered there's a thing called business protections. So what I did was I reached out to the providers. This was the first part, for an education, because again, I don't know anything about this. I was very, very lucky. I spoke to all the BDMs within the protection space that we were already operating in, and I asked them, do you do any training in business protection? Some said yes, some said no. I was very, very lucky to meet a man called David Dawson from Royal London, who gave me about 4 days worth of training on business protection. Such an amazing, patient individual who really gave me a lot. And I made sure that I'm an expert, that I really understood what I was doing. So that was stage one, is if you want to sell it yourself, you've got to be at the top of your game. And that's also one of the reasons why in protection in general, although I can do mortgages and I'm looking into other areas, I focus on the protection because I believe that for me to be the best advisor, I have to focus in one area and be really, really good at it. So that would be, if you want to sell it yourself, the first stage is get an education and understand what it is that you're selling, but you also have to believe in it. If you don't believe in something, in my opinion, don't do it. I just don't think you'll see many results from it. I believe in protection, and then when I understood business protection, I really believe in business protection.
Okay.
So that makes a big difference as well. And then once you've understood it and you've gone out there and you've made the decision this is something you want to do, it's a really simple conversation. You've got a client taking a development loan of, I don't know, £8 million to build a new block of flats, and he's in partnership with 3 or 4 other people, and you go, this hopefully will be great and you're going to make a lot of money. But what happens if one of your business partners, who also happens to be the developer, gets sick and drops dead or goes bankrupt, and you come up with a list of scenarios and you go, look, I wouldn't be doing my job properly if I just helped you arrange the loan. I need to make sure that you understand that there are risks, which I'm sure you do if you're doing development. At the same time, a lot of those risks we can support you with. And I guess depending on your niche and what you focus on and what you're good at, you find the products that you believe will support the advice that you're giving. So, in the development space, the advice primarily would probably be loan protection you'd be looking at. It's a slightly other side of what people regularly look at as business protection, something important to consider. And then again, shareholder protection is a really important one. If you're the developer yourself, I would highly recommend key person, right? Because something happens to you and the whole development falls apart. I mean, you've got a huge loan on your shoulders, which you can't, you have no way of necessarily balancing. And it's just understanding your clients and how you position the specific product that you need to help them in that space. And if that's if you want to advise you on your own. So I would say an education and understanding how that fits in with the sort of clients you work with. Alternatively, you can decide that actually, I can make a bit of extra cash and I don't want to invest the time in understanding the product. And instead, I want to refer. Referrals is another side, but it's a whole different ballgame.
Well, tell us more about that, Rafi. What sort of ball
So,
game?
so I've always been of the opinion that referrals don't work unless you really believe in what you're referring for, and also that you make that connection. So I'll give you an example.
Hmm.
I don't do private medical insurance, but I do want to make sure that if people are taking private medical insurance, that they're doing it with someone that is good and understands what their needs will be and will give them the right advice. So when I have clients of mine that ask me, Rafi, do you do PMI? The answer is no, but I have a really good guy. Let me introduce you. I personally make the introduction and I am personally involved in the process. So I will make the introduction and I'll say, and I'm more than happy to join you for the meeting if you want to have the initial discussion, etc., etc., etc. I have found that clients that I refer by just giving a number or saying, call X or call Y, nothing ever really happens. Clients that I invest in and I refer them and I invest in the referral, 9 times out of 10 they close.
I
So
love that.
if you want to do referrals, you need to be invested in that too. And again, I very, very, very strongly believe that if you're looking at ways to increase the value proposition that you bring to your clients and make some cash on the side, then you will be successful. If you're looking to make some cash on the side and therefore you're figuring out ways to increase a value proposition, I don't think you will. It's just from experience.
That's a great bit of experience there. I love the phrase, if you're going to do referrals, you need to invest in the referral process as well. And you kind of handhold your client over to your trusted partner, referrer. And you're even in on the meeting sometimes to pass them over like a relay race almost. So
Yeah, and I do that with all of my clients. And the reason why is because for me, my clients are not just people that I talk to once or twice. Just as an example, I have a client of mine who's got a very complicated pension setup,
right.
and he asked me for my opinion. I'm allowed to give my opinion, but I'm not an advisor. I'm not an IFA. But I went with him to a recommended IFA. I sat in the meeting with them, and together, me and the guy that I referred to, we helped build a really great operation for this client. But the client will never go anywhere else, and whatever happens, he will call me and he will ask me for my advice, which means that in 3 years from now, 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, if I am an IFA, he's still my client. And that for me has always been the number one thing. When we started our business, I said, our clients are at the heart of everything that we do. And I never, ever want to lose a client. So I will always support my clients, even, if it means I have to go the extra mile, because I love them and I care about them and I want them to be successful. And if they're successful, so are we. So I will be a part of a journey regardless of whether or not I'm actually giving the advice.
You're genuinely passionate about that, aren't you? You're
Yes,
genuinely passionate about this.
that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
coveting the client, this ring fencing the client, and I guess you look after their needs as time goes on. It's not just a one done and on.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
How
And
often?
we've built systems in place to support that. Technology is a major part of what we do as well. We have a CRM system that will remind us before every client's birthday, and they get a birthday card. We check in with them at least once a year. Again, I can just tell you the amount of money I've made from protection on people who have protection in place and their advisor hasn't kept up with them for the last 5, 10 years.
Right.
It's insane. We speak to our clients before every plan anniversary. We speak to them before their birthday. I know when my clients are having babies or not having babies, when there's been a bereavement in the family, and that's because these are people that I really care about. And I'm
Uh,
not a transaction. I'm not a transactional advisor. That's just not what I believe is the future. And I don't believe is as we were discussing before. I without the human element, there's not much in it for me. So yeah,
I love the birthdays and the anniversaries and things. A lot of
that,
advisors need to move into that farming kind of looking after the client bank culture and ethos and thoughts. You've obviously got that, and you've got CRM systems and technology to help you as well. Fascinating conversation, picking up some brilliant ideas. Final couple of questions, and any top tips then for a development finance expert who's wanting to get into the business protection side? Could give them some top tips.
The top
Yeah,
tips
two or three top tips.
is if you're in the development finance space specifically, my top tip would be if you want to advise on business protection, understand how business protection specifically can solve a problem for your client. And you, as a development finance advisor or specialist, will understand the profile of your clients and what sort of pain points they may have, identify what those pain points are, and then make sure that you are really clued in on whatever advice you're going to be giving them. This might sound obvious, but the number of people I know who are trying to get people to buy a product but don't fully understand that product means that they're not gonna. It doesn't work. If you want to get into business protection but don't necessarily have the time or the headspace,
Mm.
then find someone that you can trust in the business protection space who you can refer to, and who you know will get the job done in a way that is beneficial for you and for your clients. That would be my top tip. If you believe in it, that's great, but you really need to understand it and you need to be passionate about it. And that I guess is my top tip for protection generally, which is don't do it unless you really believe in it. Because if you don't believe in it, you'll make a bit of extra cash, but you won't be hitting the numbers that you'll see that some of the big boys out there are doing.
Yeah, I agree with that. So understand obviously the products themselves and the market, but also more importantly, understand the client that you have and the pain points, the pinch points that particular business owner has. What does she worry about? That sort of thing about running the business. I think that's key as well. And you said about setting up a referral. Are you willing to take referrals from anybody on the call? Maybe?
So we love to take referrals,
Yeah.
and it's something that is a big part of our business.
Great.
And
How can people contact you then, Rafi?
So they can either get in touch with you,
Yep.
or alternatively, you can send me an email. My email address is Rafi, RAFI,
Yep.
at Confido Financial, CONFIDO Financial.co.uk, or shoot me a WhatsApp. I'm happy to give out my number if that helps. And we're always happy to support. We've got a good team behind us. And like I've said from the beginning, client is number one for us. So that's kind of where we're at in that space.
That's brilliant. Rafi, thank you so much for your time. Really good tips and techniques and ideas. Massive passion. It oozes passion and professionalism and authenticity.
Am I allowed to say one more thing just to add so you understand? I don't know if we're running late or not, but one of the main things that I'll tell you, and it sits with me every single day, is I mentioned right at the beginning of the discussion. My uncle passed away when he was 29 years old, and he left behind a wife and 3 children. And he had an advisor who advised him on making sure when he bought his house, as all advisors do, that he has life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And his life insurance paid for his house. But my aunt, until recently, she raised 3 children on her own by herself, and she struggled financially.
Yeah.
And the reason why was because she wasn't advised correctly. And all I can tell you is the most important thing, you've got to be passionate about this. And you've got to be passionate about things in general. But if you're not passionate about protection, in my opinion, don't do it, because the ramifications that can come as a result can be devastating. And for me, that's the number one thing that drives me. And why I am so passionate about it is I've seen the other side, and I want to make a difference. And I want people to come away from this, at least in that way, being able to correctly advise people in the best way they can.
Fantastic. Rafi, thank you for your time. Always much appreciated. Remember, people, if you want to speak to Rafi and you haven't got his email, just contact me, because Rafi and I are big buddies, so I can pass you over and it'll all work well.
And a big thank you to you, Paul, because you've been there part of this journey in various different ways, and I really appreciate your support and the support you give to me, but to advisors in general. And thank you. It's been a really good relationship. So
brilliant stuff. Well, everybody have a fantastic St. Patrick's Day if that's your celebration tonight. I'm sure you might be, and we'll see you all again soon. Bye for now.
Speak to you soon. Bye. Bye.